The October wind cut through the narrow streets of Boston as Lily Chen stepped off the subway and made her way toward Riverside Community Hospital. She pulled her faded cardigan tighter around her nurse's scrubs, walking quickly past the old brownstones and corner delis. The hospital wasn't fancy, nothing like the glass towers downtown, but it was where she belonged, where she had chosen to give her time, her energy, her heart, and soon, her kidney. Lily was 27 and she had been working at Riverside for almost 5 years. Patients knew her for her gentle touch, her steady hands, and the way she smiled even when exhaustion pulled at her bones. But what nobody knew was that she had once sat in a different waiting room, not as a nurse, but as a daughter, helpless, watching her father die. David Chen had been 52 when kidney disease took him. Polycystic kidney disease, the same condition that had killed his mother. He had waited on the transplant list for 14 months. The match never came. Lily had offered immediately, begged the doctors to test her, but she wasn't compatible. Wrong blood type. She had sat beside his hospital bed, holding his hand, watching him fade, knowing her blood couldn't save him. That grief had carved something out of her, left a hollow space that never quite filled. After the funeral, Lily walked into the donor registry office and signed the papers. Anonymous living donor. She checked the box and walked out, carrying a quiet hope that maybe, somewhere, someone else's child wouldn't have to watch their parents slip away. 18 months passed. Then the call came. A patient in critical condition, end-stage renal failure, rare blood type, AB negative. Less than 48 hours left. Lily's blood type made her one of only 3 viable matches in the entire regional database. The coordinator's voice was calm but urgent. "You don't have to decide right now," she said, but Lily already had. Now sitting in the pre-op room in a pale blue gown, monitors beeping softly around her, Lily felt strangely calm. Dr. Morrison entered, clipboard in hand, familiar face lined with concern. "We'll begin in 40 minutes, he said gently. "You're certain about this?" Lily nodded. "I've never been more certain of anything. Do you want to know who the recipient is?" She paused, then shook her head. "No, that's not why I'm doing this." Dr. Morrison studied her for a long moment. "You're remarkable, Lily. You know that?" She smiled faintly. "I'm just doing what I wish someone could have done for my dad." The surgery took 5 hours. When Lily woke, there was pain, sharp and deep, like something essential had been taken. But underneath the pain was something else. Relief, peace, the feeling that maybe her father's death had not been completely meaningless. In another recovery room 3 floors above, a man was waking up too. Marcus Holloway, 34, had never been the kind of man who asked for help. Founder and CEO of Vertex Realty Group, he had built a commercial real estate empire before he turned 30. Billion-dollar developments, luxury high-rises, his name on buildings across 3 states. He had controlled every aspect of his life with ruthless precision. But disease doesn't care about control. For 3 years, his kidneys had been failing. Slowly at first, then catastrophically. Dialysis 4 times a week. Fluid in his lungs. His skin had turned gray, his body a prison. He had been 72 hours from death when the call came. They found a match. When he woke, the first thing he noticed was that he could breathe. Really breathe. The constant, crushing weight on his chest was gone. Color had returned to his hands. "Who was the donor?" he asked, his voice rough from the breathing tube. The nurse adjusted his IV without looking up. "Anonymous. Young woman. She didn't want to be identified." Marcus stared at the ceiling. He had bought buildings, negotiated $100 million deals, employed thousands of people. But now he owed everything, his life itself, to someone whose name he would never know. And 3 floors below, the woman with the quiet resolve and tired eyes slept alone, never knowing she had just saved the man who thought nothing in the world could touch him. Not even kindness. Lily returned to work 11 days after surgery. Too soon, but nurses always came back too soon. The ache beneath her ribs flared every time she bent or lifted, but she said nothing. She had learned long ago to work through pain. "Welcome back, stranger Marcus," one of the techs called out as she passed the nurse's station. Lily smiled, shifting her patient charts to her other hip. Missed this place. Nobody asked about the surgery. Medical leave was common enough, and Lily didn't volunteer information. She moved through her shifts quietly, checking vitals, changing dressings, comforting families in waiting rooms. But sometimes, late at night when the halls grew silent, she found herself standing in the same ICU where her father had died. She would touch the doorframe of room 304, the room where he had taken his last breath, and whisper, "I did it, Dad. I saved someone." She never told anyone that the grief still came in waves, that some mornings she woke up crying without knowing why, that giving away part of herself had somehow made the loss feel both lighter and heavier at the same time. Across the city, in a sprawling penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor, Marcus Holloway stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sun set over the water. The view was worth $3 million. The view and the silence. The penthouse was beautiful, all clean lines and custom furniture, the kind of place that appeared in architectural magazines. But it felt empty. It had always felt empty. He and Claire had bought the place together, back when they thought they had time. She had wanted to fill it with life, maybe a dog, maybe kids someday. But Claire had gotten sick first. Kidney disease, sudden and aggressive. There had been no match, no time. Money couldn't buy what they needed, and Marcus had learned what powerlessness felt like. She had died in a hospital room with machines beeping around her, and Marcus had held her hand, unable to do anything but watch. 2 years later, it had been his turn. The same disease. Genetic, the doctor said. Hereditary. And he had thought, maybe this is justice. Maybe I'm supposed to follow her. But then someone, a stranger, had given him life. He looked down at the scar on his abdomen, still red and healing. Someone had walked into a hospital, offered up a piece of themselves, and walked away expecting nothing. No payment, no recognition, no thank you. It shook something loose inside him, something he had buried after Claire died. He had spent 2 years building taller buildings, closing bigger deals, working 18-hour days to avoid feeling anything. But now he felt everything: gratitude, guilt, wonder, unworthiness. He picked up his phone and called his attorney. "I want to set up a fund," he said, "for transplant patients who can't afford care. Pre- and post-op, everything." The attorney hesitated. "That's very generous, Marcus. How much are we talking?" "10 million to start, and I don't want my name on it." After he hung up, Marcus realized something. For the first time in 2 years, he wanted to leave the penthouse. Not for a business meeting, not for an acquisition. He wanted to go to the hospital. He wanted to see the place where his life had been saved, to stand in those halls and try to understand what kind of person gives like that. The next morning he went. Riverside Community Hospital was nothing like the private medical center where he'd had his surgery. The floors were scuffed, the paint faded, but there was something warmer about it. Real. He walked the corridors slowly, hands in his coat pockets, baseball cap pulled low. No one recognized him. No one cared. He was just another visitor. Then he saw her. Through the window of a patient room, a young nurse knelt beside an elderly woman who was crying. The nurse wasn't rushing, wasn't patronizing. She just held the woman's hand and listened. When the woman finally calmed, the nurse helped her sit up, adjusted her blankets, and smiled, soft and genuine. Something about that smile stopped Marcus cold. He watched as the nurse moved to the next room, checking an IV, laughing quietly with a teenage patient. There was no performance in it, no exhaustion either, just presence. She moved like someone who had chosen this, not as a job, but as a calling. Marcus found himself returning the next day, and the day after that. He sat on a bench near the cardiac wing, pretending to read emails, but really he was watching her. Lily, he heard someone call her. Lily Chen. She had this way of tilting her head when she listened, like the person talking was the only person in the world. She never checked her phone, never seemed in a hurry. Once he saw her sit with a patient for 20 minutes, just sitting, holding the man's hand while he cried. Marcus didn't know why he kept coming back. Maybe because she reminded him of Claire. Or maybe because watching her made him believe the world wasn't as cold as he thought. On his 5th visit, he overheard 2 doctors talking near the elevator. Still no word on who the donor was, one said. The other shook her head. All they told us was AB negative, female, under 30. Didn't want any recognition. Refused compensation. Marcus's heart stopped. AB negative, female, under 30. He turned and looked across the hall. Lily was restocking a med cart, moving carefully, one hand pressed briefly to her side like something hurt. No, he thought, it couldn't be. But the pieces fit, the timeline, the blood type, the selflessness. He stayed until she finished her shift, watched her walk out through the side entrance, limping slightly, exhausted but smiling at a colleague. Marcus sat on that bench for another hour, staring at nothing, heart pounding. If it was her, if she was the one who saved him, how could he ever look her in the eye and say what he owed her? How do you thank someone for your life? The lights in the hospital corridor flickered briefly, the way old buildings do, and Marcus Holloway realized he was still sitting on the same bench. 3 hours had passed. His phone buzzed with missed calls, board meetings, acquisition deadlines, but he couldn't move. Lily Chen. The name looped in his mind. Could it really be her? He started coming to the hospital every other day. He told his assistant he was doing site research for a new development nearby, which wasn't entirely a lie. Vertex had projects all over the city, but the truth was he needed to know. He watched her with patience, with families. He saw her comfort a mother whose son had just been diagnosed with leukemia. He saw her stay 2 hours past her shift to sit with a man who had no visitors. Once he watched her cry in a stairwell, silent tears she wiped away quickly before returning to the floor with that same steady smile. She was the kind of person who gave until there was nothing left. The kind of person he used to be. Before Claire died. Before he built walls around everything soft inside him. Then one afternoon, everything changed. Marcus was sitting in his usual spot when he heard the commotion. Nurses running, someone calling for a crash cart. He stood, instinct pulling him toward the noise. And then he saw her. Lily collapsed near the nurse's station. Another nurse was kneeling beside her, checking her pulse. Lily's face was pale, her eyes closed. "Get her to emergency," someone shouted. Marcus didn't think. He pushed through, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I've got her." The nurses turned, startled, but something in his tone, the authority, the urgency, made them step back. Marcus lifted Lily carefully, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her back. She was lighter than he expected, fragile in a way that made his chest tighten. "Follow me," he said, and strode toward the private elevator that connected to the medical executive wing. He had donated enough money to this hospital to have access everywhere. They took her to a private recovery room, one usually reserved for donors and VIP patients. A doctor arrived within minutes, started an IV, ran tests. "Severe anemia," the doctor said, looking at Marcus like he had the right to know. "Post-surgical complications. Most likely, she's malnourished and exhausted. This woman shouldn't have been working." Marcus stood at the foot of the bed, fists clenched. "Post-surgical," he repeated slowly. The doctor hesitated, then seemed to remember patient confidentiality. "I shouldn't have said that." But it was too late. Marcus knew. He stayed. He told his assistant to cancel everything, told the board he was unreachable. For the first time in a decade, Marcus Holloway put someone else first. Lily woke slowly, consciousness returning in fragments. Beeping, soft sheets, the smell of antiseptic. She tried to sit up and pain lanced through her side. "Easy," a voice said. She turned her head. A man sat in the chair beside her bed. Dark hair, sharp features, expensive clothes that looked out of place in a hospital room. His eyes were red like he hadn't slept. "Who are you?" Lily's voice was hoarse. "Marcus." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You collapsed at the hospital. I brought you here." Lily blinked, trying to piece together what happened. "I need to get back. I have a shift." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You need to rest. You've been pushing yourself too hard." "I'm fine." "You're not." His voice softened. "Why didn't you tell anyone you had surgery?" Lily looked away. "It's none of their business." Marcus studied her, the stubborn, selfless woman who had literally given a piece of herself and gone back to work like it was nothing. He wanted to tell her right then, wanted to say, "You saved me. You gave me life." But the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he said, "Let me help you." "I don't need help. Everyone needs help." He stood, paced to the window. "Believe me, I know." Something in his tone made Lily look at him differently. There was pain in his voice, the kind that came from experience. "Who are you, really?" she asked. Marcus turned. "Just someone who understands what it's like to lose people you love, and what it means when someone gives you a second chance." Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither spoke. Then Lily noticed something. Marcus had shifted, his shirt pulling tight, and there at the edge of his collar, barely visible, was the edge of a bandage. The same place, the same side. Her breath caught. Marcus saw her looking. He saw the exact moment she understood. Slowly, carefully, he pulled his collar down, revealing the surgical scar, still pink and healing. "It was you," Lily whispered. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "I've been looking for you. I didn't know it was you until today. But I felt it. Every time I saw you with those patients, I knew. Someone that kind, that selfless, that had to be the person who saved me." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't do it for gratitude. I know." Marcus sat back down, close enough that she could see his hands were shaking. "But you have it anyway. You have all of it. Everything I am, everything I'll ever be, I owe to you." Lily shook her head. "You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything." His voice broke. "My wife died waiting for a kidney. I watched her die and there was nothing I could do. And then I got sick and I thought, this is it. This is what I deserve. But you," he looked at her, "you gave me life. Not because you knew me, not for money or recognition. You just gave." They sat in silence, the weight of it settling between them. Two people both shaped by loss, both carrying scars, now connected in the most intimate way possible. Finally, Lily spoke. "What was her name?" "Claire." Lily smiled softly. "She'd be glad you're still here." Marcus's eyes closed. He hadn't cried since Claire's funeral, but now sitting in this hospital room with the woman who saved him, tears slipped down his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for my life." Lily reached out and took his hand, and in that moment, something shifted. Gratitude began to grow into something deeper, something neither of them had felt in a very long time. Hope. The following days were strange and careful. Marcus didn't leave. He had a cot brought into Lily's recovery room, ignored the confused looks from nurses, and simply stayed. At first, Lily protested. "You have a company to run," she said. "You can't just camp out in a hospital." "Watch me," Marcus replied, not looking up from his laptop where he was taking video calls with his executives, all while sitting in a plastic chair that probably cost less than his shoes. But what surprised Lily most wasn't his presence. It was how present he was. He noticed when she winced before she said anything hurt. He learned her schedule, when the pain meds wore off, when she needed water, when she just needed silence. He never hovered, never smothered. He simply existed nearby, steady and solid. On the third day, when Lily was finally cleared to walk, Marcus was the one who helped her stand. She gripped his arm, her legs shaky, and they took 5 slow steps to the window. The view looked out over the hospital courtyard, a small garden space with benches and a fountain. Not much, but the leaves were turning golden red, and the afternoon light made everything glow. "My dad used to sit down there," Lily said quietly. "When he was strong enough to leave his room, he'd go down there and just watch the birds. He said it made him feel less trapped." Marcus didn't respond, just listened. "The last time I saw him, he couldn't make it down anymore. So I took pictures, brought them to his room." She smiled, but it was sad. He pretended they were as good as the real thing. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "Don't be." Lily turned to look at him. He would have liked knowing someone else got a chance. That's all he wanted, for someone to get the chance he didn't. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I won't waste it. I promise you that." They stood there together, two people learning how to carry each other's grief. That evening, after Lily fell asleep, Marcus went down to the courtyard. He walked the paths his donor's father had walked, sat on the same bench, watched the same fountain, and he made a decision. By the time Lily was discharged a week later, Marcus had already set things in motion. He didn't tell her yet. He wanted it to be real first, not just a promise. He drove her home personally. Her apartment was in a neighborhood he'd never been to, old buildings with laundromats on the first floor and fire escapes cluttered with plants. Her unit was a tiny studio on the third floor, one window, a kitchen the size of a closet. Marcus looked around, trying not to let his face show what he was thinking. This was what she came home to after saving his life. A futon, a microwave, walls so thin you could hear neighbors arguing. It's small, Lily said, defensive, but it's mine. It's perfect, Marcus lied, because it was hers, and that made it matter. He helped her settle in, made sure she had groceries, her medications lined up, his personal number programmed into her phone. Call me if you need anything. I mean it. Anything. Lily smiled. You've already done too much. Not even close, Marcus said. Then he left, but not because he wanted to, because she needed rest, and he was learning that caring for someone meant knowing when to step back. But he didn't go far. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily started noticing things. The landlord, who usually ignored repair requests, suddenly fixed her broken heater. A box of high-end groceries appeared outside her door with a note from a grateful friend. Her hospital bills, which should have been crushing, were mysteriously paid in full, marked as covered by an anonymous donor fund. Lily wasn't stupid. She knew. She confronted him on a Thursday, showing up unannounced at Vertex headquarters. The lobby alone was intimidating, all marble and glass, and receptionists who looked like models. But Lily walked right up, still in her scrubs from her shift, and said, I need to see Marcus Holloway. The receptionist blinked. Do you have an appointment? Tell him Lily's here. He'll see me. 5 minutes later, Marcus appeared, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking both surprised and pleased. Lily, is everything okay? No. She crossed her arms. Why did you pay my hospital bills? Marcus glanced at the very interested receptionist, then gestured toward the elevator. Let's talk upstairs. In his office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Lily didn't give him a chance to deflect. I didn't give you my kidney so you could throw money at me. I'm not throwing money. Marcus leaned against his desk. I'm evening the scales. There are no scales. That's not how this works. Then tell me how it works, he said, frustration creeping into his voice. Tell me how I'm supposed to live with the fact that you're struggling to pay rent while I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. You gave me life, Lily, actual life, and I'm supposed to just go back to my penthouse and pretend I don't know you're eating ramen for every meal? Lily's anger faltered. I didn't do it for payback. I know. Marcus's voice softened. That's exactly why I want to help. Because you don't expect it. Because you'd never ask. He stepped closer. Let me do this. Not as repayment, as thank you. Let me say thank you. Lily looked at him. This man who had every material thing but had still lost everything that mattered. She saw past the expensive office, past the power and the wealth, and saw someone just as scarred as she was. Okay, she said quietly, but no more surprises. Deal. Marcus smiled, and it was the first real smile she'd seen from him. Then he added, though I should tell you, I already set up a scholarship fund in your father's name. For medical students. Too late to take that back. Lily's breath caught. You what? David Chen Memorial Scholarship. First recipient starts next semester. Tears spilled over before she could stop them. Marcus moved toward her instinctively, then paused, uncertain. Lily closed the distance and hugged him, hard and tight, and Marcus wrapped his arms around her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Thank you, she whispered into his shoulder, and Marcus realized something that terrified and exhilarated him in equal measure. This wasn't gratitude anymore. This was something else entirely, something he thought died with Claire. He was falling in love with the woman who saved his life. Everything was perfect for 3 weeks. Marcus and Lily fell into a rhythm, coffee before her morning shifts, late dinners after his meetings, walks through the hospital courtyard where her father used to sit. They talked about everything, her childhood in San Francisco, his years building Vertex from nothing, the people they'd lost, the scars they carried. Then the story broke. Billionaire CEO's secret. Life saved by hospital nurse. The headline appeared on a business news site first, then spread like wildfire. Someone, a hospital employee, a board member, maybe just someone with access to records had leaked the connection between Marcus Holloway and Lily Chen. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Photos of them walking together, zoomed-in shots of their scars through telephoto lenses, speculation about their relationship. The narrative wrote itself before they had a chance to control it. Did nurse target wealthy patient? One tabloid asked. Lover transaction? Another questioned. From donor to gold digger, the Lily Chen story. Lily read them in her apartment, her hands shaking, her stomach turning. She had given away a piece of her body anonymously, expecting nothing, and now the world was calling her an opportunist, a schemer, someone who had calculated every moment. Her phone rang constantly, reporters, old classmates wanting quotes, strangers calling her a leech. The hospital put her on administrative leave, not as punishment, but for her own protection. Colleagues who used to smile at her now whispered when she passed. She lasted 4 days before she broke. Marcus found her in the hospital parking lot, sitting in her car, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. He opened the door, crouched beside her, and just held her while she fell apart. I can't do this, she gasped. They think I used you. They think I planned this. They're saying my father's scholarship is blood money. They're wrong, Marcus said firmly. It doesn't matter. The damage is done. She looked at him, eyes red and swollen. This is your world, Marcus, not mine. I'm just the nurse who got in over her head. Don't say that. It's true. Lily wiped her face. You belong up there, in boardrooms and penthouses. I belong here, in scrubs, in the background. This was always going to end badly. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. You're not ending this. We're not ending this. We have to. She pulled away from him. Before they destroy both of us. She drove away, and Marcus stood in that parking lot, helpless again, watching someone he loved slip away. And this time, it wasn't because of disease. It was because the world couldn't understand that sometimes love grows from the most unlikely places. Marcus Holloway didn't do helpless. He had built an empire by refusing to accept no, by finding solutions when everyone else saw dead ends. But standing in that parking lot, watching Lily's taillights disappear, he felt the same crushing weight he'd felt holding Claire's hand as she died. No, not again. He made 3 phone calls, the first to his head of PR, the second to his attorney, the third to the organizers of the Northeast Medical Gala, the biggest healthcare fundraiser of the year, attended by politicians, hospital executives, major donors. Vertex was already a platinum sponsor. Now Marcus wanted the opening speech. They tried to tell him it was already assigned to the governor. Marcus doubled his donation. The speech was his. 4 days later, Lily was still hiding in her apartment when her phone buzzed. It was Maya, her only friend from the hospital who hadn't ghosted her. Turn on Channel 7. Now. Lily grabbed her remote. The screen showed a ballroom filled with hundreds of people in black tie, crystal chandeliers, cameras everywhere. And at the podium, Marcus. Her breath stopped. He looked different on camera. Harder, more commanding. Every inch the CEO the world knew. But there was something else in his face. Vulnerability. Most of you know me as the founder of Vertex Realty Group, Marcus began, his voice steady. You know the buildings I've built, the deals I've closed. What you don't know is that 3 months ago, I was dying. The room went silent. End-stage renal failure. I had maybe 2 days left. And then someone I'd never met, someone who owed me nothing, who had no idea who I was, gave me her kidney. Cameras flashed, murmurs rippled through the crowd. That person is Lily Chen. She's a nurse at Riverside Community Hospital. And before you believe what you've read in the tabloids, let me tell you who she really is. Marcus stepped away from the podium. No notes, no script. Lily Chen's father died waiting for a kidney transplant. She was there. She watched him fade while she could do nothing to help. And instead of letting that grief destroy her, she became a donor, anonymous, no payment, no recognition. She just wanted someone else's child to not feel the helplessness she felt. His voice cracked slightly. She didn't know I was a CEO. She didn't know my name. She didn't know anything except that someone was dying and she could help. And after she saved my life, she went right back to work, taking care of patients, living in a studio apartment, eating cereal for dinner, because that's who she is. Someone who gives everything and asks for nothing. The ballroom was completely still now. The media is calling her a gold digger. They're saying she targeted me, that this was calculated. Marcus's jaw tightened. Let me be clear. Lily Chen gave me a kidney before she knew who I was. She collapsed from exhaustion because she went back to work too soon after surgery. And when I tried to help her, when I tried to say thank you, she refused. Every single time. He paused, looking directly into the camera. I fell in love with her, not because she saved my life, but because of who she is. Because she sees a scared patient and sits with them for hours. Because she remembers the names of people's children. Because she carries grief and still chooses kindness. Every single day. Marcus's eyes were bright with unshed tears. If anyone should be questioned, it's me. What did I do to deserve her? What did I do to earn someone like that in my life? He shook his head. Nothing. I did nothing. I just got impossibly, undeservedly lucky. The room erupted in applause, but Marcus wasn't done. So to the reporters who called her an opportunist, to the people who questioned her motives, to anyone who thinks she's anything less than the most remarkable person I've ever met, he leaned forward. You're wrong, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. He stepped off the stage and the ballroom rose to its feet. In her apartment, Lily was crying again, but this time, not from pain, from something else entirely. Something that felt like vindication, like being seen, like being defended by someone who didn't have to, but chose to anyway. Her phone rang. Marcus, did you watch? He asked. Yes. Her voice shook. I'm coming to get you. Marcus, I'm not asking, Lily. I'm coming to get you, and we're going to walk into that gala together. And everyone is going to see exactly who you are. Not the tabloids version, the real version. Lily looked at herself in the mirror. Hair a mess, face puffy from crying, wearing sweatpants and one of her dad's old t-shirts. I'm not exactly dressed for a gala. I don't care if you show up in scrubs. Marcus's voice was fierce. I just need you beside me. 30 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Lily opened it to find Marcus holding a garment bag and smiling. Just in case you wanted options, he said. Inside was a dress. Simple, elegant, midnight blue. Not flashy, not trying too hard. Exactly her style. How did you... I pay attention, Marcus said softly. Lily changed quickly, hands shaking as she zipped it up. Marcus waited, and when she emerged, he stared at her like she was the only person in the world. You're beautiful. I'm terrified. Me too. He offered his hand. Let's be terrified together. They arrived at the gala 45 minutes later. The moment they walked in, cameras turned, flashes exploded, the entire room swiveled to look. Lily's instinct was to run, but Marcus squeezed her hand, steady and sure, and they walked forward together. People approached cautiously at first, then warmer. A hospital director shook Lily's hand and thanked her. A transplant surgeon asked about her recovery. The governor's wife hugged her and said, "My sister is alive because of someone like you." Slowly the narrative shifted. Not in the tabloids, not yet, but here, in this room, among people who mattered. They saw her, the real her, and Marcus never left her side. Not for photos, not for networking. His attention was entirely on her, making sure she was comfortable, introducing her with pride, his hand never leaving the small of her back. Near the end of the night, they stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking the harbor. The noise of the gala faded behind them, leaving just the sound of water and distant traffic. Thank you, Lily said quietly. For what you said in there, I meant every word. Marcus turned to her. I know this has been hell. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But I'm not sorry. He stepped closer. I'm not sorry the world knows, because now I can do this. He cupped her face gently and kissed her. Soft, careful, full of everything he'd been holding back. And Lily kissed him back, this man who had defended her in front of the world, who saw her when she felt invisible, who loved her not despite her kindness, but because of it. When they pulled apart, Marcus whispered, "I'm going to keep choosing you, every single day, for the rest of my life." Lily smiled, tears on her cheeks. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time in months, they both felt something they'd almost forgotten. Safe. 9 months later, Lily stood in the center of the newly opened Riverside Transplant Center, watching as the final construction crews packed up their equipment. The building was beautiful, all light and glass, designed to feel less like a hospital and more like a sanctuary. This was never supposed to be her life. She was supposed to be a floor nurse forever, living paycheck to paycheck, quietly helping people in the background. But Marcus had seen something different in her, a leader, a voice, someone who could change systems, not just comfort patients within them. Together, they had co-founded the Chen Holloway Foundation, named after her father and Marcus's late wife. It funded transplant surgeries for uninsured patients, provided housing for donor families during recovery, and trained living donor advocates. The Riverside Center was their flagship, the first of what they hoped would be many. Lily walked through the donor recovery wing, running her hand along the walls. Each room had a window seat, soft lighting, space for family to stay overnight. Everything she had wished for when she was recovering alone. "Thought I'd find you here." Marcus's voice came from behind her. She turned, smiling. "Just making sure it's perfect." "It's already perfect." He joined her at the window. "Because you designed it. We designed it." Marcus wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. In 9 months, they had built something bigger than either of them. But more than that, they had built a life. Not the one either of them expected, but the one they needed. Lily turned in his arms. "There's something I need to show you." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Another surprise?" "Maybe." She took his hand and led him through the building, past the consultation rooms and surgical suites, until they reached the main atrium. In the center stood something covered with a white sheet. Lily pulled the sheet away, revealing a bronze sculpture. Two figures, abstract but recognizable, one reaching toward the other, their hands almost touching. At the base, a plaque read, "For those who give, for those who receive, for the connection that saves us all." Marcus stared at it, his throat tight. "Lily, it's not just about us." She stepped beside him. "It's about everyone. Every donor who said yes. Every recipient who got a second chance. Every family who didn't have to say goodbye." Marcus pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Your father would be so proud of you. So would Claire." Lily looked up at him. "We're doing this for them." They stood there in silence, two people who had found each other in the most impossible way, now building something that would outlast them both. That evening, Marcus drove them not to his penthouse or her old apartment, both of which they'd left behind, but to the house they'd bought together. A modest place by his standards, huge by hers, in a neighborhood halfway between the hospital and downtown. It had a yard for the dog they were planning to adopt, space for the family they hoped to build. Inside, Lily kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the couch. "I'm exhausted." Marcus sat beside her, pulling her feet into his lap and starting to massage them. "Worth it, completely." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that only comes when two people have stopped performing for each other. Then Marcus said, "I have something to ask you." Lily looked at him, suspicious. "If it's about expanding to another city already, I need at least a week before." "Not about the foundation." He shifted, suddenly nervous in a way she rarely saw. "About us." Lily sat up straighter. "Okay." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Lily's breath caught. "I've been carrying this around for 2 months," he admitted, waiting for the perfect moment. "Then I realized there's no such thing as perfect. There's just us, doing our best, building something real." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple and elegant, with a single stone that caught the light. "Lily Chen, I was dying when you saved me." But you didn't just give me life. You showed me how to live again, how to care about something bigger than myself, how to love without fear." His voice shook slightly. "I don't know how much time we get. Nobody does. But whatever time I have, I want to spend it with you, building things, helping people, maybe raising kids who are half as kind as you are." Tears streamed down Lily's face. "Will you marry me?" "Yes." She laughed through the tears. "Yes, of course, yes." Marcus slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into his arms. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other, both thinking about the path that had led them here, the losses, the grief, the impossible coincidence that had brought them together. "Can I tell you something?" Lily whispered. "Anything. Sometimes I dream about my dad, and in the dreams he's healthy again." She pulled back to look at Marcus, and he always says the same thing. He says, "You did good, Lily. You did real good." Marcus's eyes filled. "You did. You really did." She smiled. "We did." The wedding was 6 months later, in the courtyard of Riverside Hospital, the same place where Lily's father used to sit, where she and Marcus had first walked together after the truth came out. They had wanted somewhere meaningful, somewhere that represented who they were, not who the world expected them to be. The guest list was small: hospital staff, foundation board members, a few of Marcus's executives who had become real friends. Maya was Lily's maid of honor, standing beside her in the same scrubs she wore to work, because Lily had insisted, "Come as you are." Marcus stood at the makeshift altar, his best man beside him, a transplant recipient from the foundation's first year. The man was alive because of their work, thriving because someone had said yes. When Lily appeared, walking down the aisle alone, she carried a single white rose, her father's favorite. She placed it on the bench where he used to sit, whispered something only she could hear, then continued toward Marcus. His eyes never left her face. The ceremony was short, personal. No grand speeches, just simple vows. "I promise to choose you," Lily said, her voice steady, "every day in the small moments and the big ones. I promise to build a life with you that honors the people we've lost and the second chances we've been given." Marcus took her hands. "I promise to see you. Not just the strength everyone else sees, but the moments when you're tired, when you're scared, when you need someone to hold you up. I promise to be that person. Always." They exchanged rings, simple bands engraved with coordinates. The exact location of the hospital room where Marcus had woken up after surgery, where his life had been saved, where everything had changed. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in applause. But Lily and Marcus barely heard it. They were too focused on each other, on the impossible journey that had led them here, on the future they would build together. Later, at the reception held in the Foundation's community room, Marcus gave a toast. "Most people think our story's about a kidney," he said, raising his glass. "But it's not. It's about what happens when someone chooses to give without knowing what they'll receive. When kindness meets gratitude and becomes something bigger." He looked at Lily. "It's about two broken people finding each other and deciding to be whole together." Lily stood, taking the microphone. "And it's about making sure no one else has to go through what we went through alone." She gestured around the room. "Everyone here, you're part of this. Every donor, every recipient, every family member who sat in a waiting room hoping for a miracle. This foundation, this work, it's for all of us." The room raised their glasses, and in that moment, it wasn't about wealth or status or even romance. It was about community, about people who understood loss and chose hope anyway. Late that night, after the guests had left and the decorations were being packed away, Lily and Marcus returned to the courtyard. They sat on her father's bench, watching the fountain, the same view he'd watched while waiting for a transplant that never came. "Do you think he knows?" Lily asked quietly. Marcus put his arm around her. "I think somehow he does." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other in the darkness and built a life in the light. The courtyard was peaceful, just the sound of water and the rustle of leaves. Then Lily said, "I want to do something." "What?" "Plant a tree, right here in this courtyard, for him." For Claire, for everyone we've lost and everyone we've saved. Marcus smiled. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. But they didn't wait. 20 minutes later, they were back with a sapling from the foundation's greenhouse, a Japanese maple with leaves just starting to turn red. They planted it together beside the fountain, their wedding clothes dirty with soil, not caring at all. As they patted down the earth, Marcus said, "This is going to be here long after we're gone." Good. Lily stood, brushing dirt from her hands. Let it remind people that loss can become something beautiful, that grief can become purpose. They stepped back, looking at the small tree that would one day provide shade for future patients, future families, future stories they would never know. Marcus took Lily's hand. "Ready to go home?" She smiled. "Ready." They walked out of the courtyard together, leaving the tree behind, a living monument to the truth that had defined their lives, that sometimes giving everything is how you find everything, that love doesn't always arrive the way you expect, and that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't something you can hold in your hands, it's the choice to see them, to save them, to stand beside them and say, "You matter." The tree would grow. The foundation would expand. More lives would be saved. More families spared the grief that had brought Lily and Marcus together. But tonight, they were just two people who had found each other against impossible odds, walking into a future neither had dared to imagine. And somewhere in whatever place exists beyond this one, David Chen and Claire Holloway were watching and smiling and finally at peace. Years passed. The single tree in the courtyard grew into a canopy that shaded half the garden. The Chen Holloway Foundation expanded to 12 cities, funded over 3,000 transplants, and changed legislation in 4 states. Lily became a national advocate for living donors, speaking at medical conferences, advising hospitals on best practices. Marcus restructured Vertex entirely, pivoting half the company's focus to medical real estate, building affordable recovery housing near major transplant centers. They had 2 children, a daughter they named Claire and a son they named David. Both grew up knowing exactly why they had those names, understanding from an early age that life was precious, that kindness mattered, that their parents' love story was built on a foundation of loss and grace. On the 10th anniversary of Lily's donation, they returned to Riverside Hospital for a ceremony. The courtyard had been renamed the Chen Holloway Memorial Garden, and a second sculpture had been added beside the first. This one showed a tree with roots spreading wide, and inscribed at the base were the words, "One life, infinite ripples." Lily stood at the podium, now confident in front of crowds, and told her story again. Not for attention, but because every time she told it, someone in the audience decided to become a donor. Every time she spoke, another life was saved. "When you give," she said, "you don't just change one person's story, you change everyone connected to them, their children, their partners, their future. You create possibility where there was only ending." Marcus stood off to the side, watching her with the same wonder he'd felt that first day he saw her with patience. She still had that quality, that presence that made people believe the world could be better. After the ceremony, an elderly woman approached them, holding the hand of a teenage girl. "Mrs. Chen Holloway," the woman said, "I wanted you to meet my granddaughter, Emma. She received a kidney 2 years ago through your foundation." The girl smiled shyly. "I want to be a nurse," she said, "like you, so I can help people the way you helped my family." Lily's eyes filled with tears. She knelt down to the girl's level. "Then you will be an incredible nurse, because you understand what it means to need help. And that's the most important thing." The girl hugged her, and Lily held on tight, thinking about her father, about that hospital room, about the moment she decided that if she couldn't save him, she would save someone else. That night, back in their home, Marcus found Lily standing in their daughter's room, watching Claire sleep. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I was just thinking about all the lives we'll never know about. All the people who are alive because of the foundation, who we'll never meet." Marcus wrapped his arms around her from behind. "That's the point, though, isn't it? It's not about recognition. It's about the ripple." Lily leaned into him. "Do you ever regret it? How complicated everything got?" Not once. Marcus turned her to face him. I would go through every difficult moment again if it meant ending up here. With you, with our kids, with this life we built. Even the media circus? Even that, he smiled. Though I could have done without the gold digger headlines. Lily laughed, then grew serious. I used to think my father's death was just tragedy, just loss. But now, she gestured around. Now it's also this. It's Claire sleeping upstairs. It's David's laugh. It's 3,000 people who are alive and wouldn't be otherwise. It doesn't make the loss hurt less, Marcus said gently. No, but it makes it mean something. And that's enough. They stood in silence, holding each other, two people who had learned that grief and joy could coexist, that you could carry loss and still build beauty, that sometimes the most painful chapters become the most important ones. Downstairs the doorbell rang. Marcus went to answer it and returned carrying a package. What is it? Lily asked. He opened it carefully, and inside was a letter and a photo. The letter was from a woman in California, thanking them for the foundation's support during her daughter's transplant. The photo showed the daughter, healthy and smiling, holding a sign that read, "Because someone said yes." Marcus handed it to Lily, and she stared at it, tears streaming down her face. These letters arrived almost weekly now, each one a reminder that their pain had not been wasted. That David's death and Claire's death had somehow, impossibly, led to this. She pinned the photo to the board in their home office, beside dozens of others. A wall of faces, a wall of lives, a wall of possibility. And in that moment, Lily understood something profound. That her father hadn't died in vain, that she hadn't suffered for nothing, that every difficult moment had been leading her here, to this life, to this purpose, to this love. She turned to Marcus, took his hand, and said, "Thank you." For what? For seeing me, for choosing me, for building this with me. Marcus pulled her close. Thank you for saving my life, and then showing me what to do with it. They held each other in the quiet of their home, surrounded by photos of strangers who were no longer strangers, who were part of their story now. Part of the infinite ripple that started with one choice, one sacrifice, one quiet act of love. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere, a patient was waking up from surgery with new hope. Somewhere, a family was receiving good news. Somewhere, someone was making the choice to give. And the ripple continued, wider and wider, touching lives they would never see, creating futures they would never know. All because once, a young woman had chosen to turn her grief into grace, and a man had recognized it as the most valuable thing in the world. The tree in the courtyard continued to grow, its branches reaching higher each year, offering shade to the weary, shelter to the grieving, hope to the waiting. And beneath it, on a small plaque that most people never noticed, were 7 words that told the entire story. It didn't start with love, it started with life. But in the end, it became both. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe and share. We have more stories coming. Drop comments below, I'm reading it.